Okay, we are resuming our discussion. Let's talk about accepting remuneration for Dini services. It's the it's well established that Sahaba radiallahu anhu never did so. In some cases, there are several uh, events mentioned in the book of Hadith Sahaba, fourth part, uh, which clarifies that Sahaba radiallahu anhu never received any sort of remunerations. Uh, like Ubadah ibn Samit radiallahu anhu, he first received a bow, but later, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him that if you accept it, then you are like accepting accepting fire on your neck. So then he immediately returned. So similarly, there are similar other events like from Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu, uh, and so in every case, what happened? Sabradan first didn't realize that it was, even a simple thing, if they took as remuneration, okay, or as an exchange of any dini service, okay, like teaching Quran or whatever, then it would not be absolutely acceptable. So because they didn't realize first, in some cases, only in a few cases, they first didn't realize and they accepted, but Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited, and so they immediately returned. So in every case, eventually they returned. So they didn't keep it. So since there is not a single example from any Sahaba of reception of the remuneration for Dini services, so it can't be acceptable. We also know that none of the prophets received. So the prophets used to say that our ajr, okay, our return or our rewards are from our Rabb, or from Allah. So that's how all prophets, our prophet also, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did it with an expectation of reward from Allah. All Sahaba radiallahu anhum did all dini services the same way. So there is, since the definition of deen is limited within Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, and the lives of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there is no way we can establish that the remuneration can be acceptable. Also, there is a verse in the Quran that can you please tell me the verse? وَلَا تَشْتَرُوا.
ولا تشتروا بآياتي ثمنا قليلا.
Yeah. So for this simple, which is a very small value. Okay, the worldly things, which has a very small value. How do you exchange dini services? Okay, so you can't do that. So on one side, it's not acceptable. It's very clear. But we also need to feel what would be the problem if we don't. If we don't follow this rule, or if we allow the remunerations, like if someone let's assume that there is a young, there is a baby, and he has his real mom. But what we do, we hire a woman who has received very good training on taking care of a child. Okay. So now if you compare, who would take care of the child better? His own mom or the lady with a very good training on taking care of child? Who would take care of the child better? What do you think?
Apparently, the one who train, but mothers can take care more than.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, let us try to feel. Okay, the other lady received a lot of training how to take care of all these things, but the feeling the real mom has. So she can even sacrifice her own life for the sake of the child. So here, her care would be all different. Okay, nobody else can do that. Okay. So that's the, but she doesn't receive any remuneration, right? Without any remuneration, she would she would take care of the child out of her feeling. She possesses the feeling for the child, and that's the type of the uh, there's the that's the way Sahabaradhan used to perform the Dini services. Okay, they had an inspiration in their hearts, so they don't need any money for the Dini services. And when if someone receives money, then she would do the job for the sake of money. Okay, that would become the intention. So she would, like this, the second lady would, I mean, she doesn't really bother how the eh, baby is actually taken care of. Her target would be money, better money. Okay. Uh, so let me use an example. I mean, a real life example. It happened in a masjid where in Ramadan, Tarawih was taking place, and a Jama went there for 3 days. As the Jama said, they found, there are two Hafiz in the Jama. So in the first night, when uh, the Tarawih was going on, there were mistakes from the Imam several times, and this Hafiz from the Jama, they gave Lukma. You understand what Lukma is, right? They gave Lukma. Well, after the Tarawih was finished and the people left the masjid, the Imam, okay, I think a couple of guys were acting as the Imam. They went to the Jama and they charged them, and also they rebuked them severely. They reproached why they gave they had given Lukma. Okay, you know why? Because now they yeah, now they I mean
Business will
the
be
yeah they're
trouble.
the right, because they were doing all for money. Okay, that money income might get affected. Okay. The general people were not understanding if whether there were any mistakes or not. So they were under the impression that everything was going fine. But now the Jama came in and they gave Lukma, so the people in that locality were now supposed to understand that okay, there might have been mistakes. Okay. The other nights we could not get, but this night we could. Okay. So they became angry. Yeah, yeah. Tell me what happened with you.
Then we went for 3 days Jama. It is in Ramadan. So Imam was leading Tarawih. But he did mistake. He jumped even like more than 5 ayah. But others who are praying with him, they are also Imam. They did not give him Lukman. I wanted to do so, but I keep quiet. Later on, I talk to them, and people make me understand in Jama that if they rectify one twice, because not once or twice, the mistake was more than twice or thrice. So they say if they rectify them once, twice, thrice, then the committee which chose them will remove them, say that they did not memorize well, and they have to take another people. That is why those people, they between them,
There's a
even if
deal.
there is mistake, they used to keep
Yeah,
quiet.
there is a deal among
The
them.
next day they rectify the mistake. That is how they are doing. The next day they rectify it, but
Not on the
not
same.
on the spot.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like taking care of the child by someone who is not mom, not the real mom. Okay, paid mom. So paid mom and real mom will be all different. Okay. In this regard, I'd like to mention a hadith from Tirmidhi. It's available in the book of Muntakab Hadith, in the Virtues of Quran part of Muntakab Hadith. And they now want to stop the talim of Muntakab Hadith among common people. And one of the possible reasons for them to stop the talim of Muntakab Hadith is the existence of this particular hadith in the book of Muntakab Hadith. So the hadith says that Hazrat Imran ibn Hussain radiallahu anhu says that I heard Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that anyone who recites the Quran, let him ask by it from Allah alone. And soon such people will come who will recite the Quran and ask for their reward from people. Once again, anyone who recites the Quran, let him ask by it from Allah alone. Soon such people will come who will recite the Quran and ask for their reward from people. An old worker of this effort should understand that when receiving money is like selling his deen. And say someone when say let's take the example of receiving bribe. When someone receives bribe, he misappropriates something. Okay, like maybe he's actually uh, letting someone take some benefit. Okay, so that's like selling something. Okay, he receives the bribe or money, and as an exchange, he is giving his something, some uh, benefit. Okay, so that's like selling something. Or a prostitute, what does she do? She sells her body for money. Okay, now the case of let bribe. Okay, which one do you think worse, selling deen or selling that benefit, that worldly benefit, and selling deen? Which one should be worse? Just as a, out of your conscience, can you selling deen should be worse, right? Similarly, if you think of selling, if you just compare selling deen and selling body, which one should be worse? Selling deen and selling body?
Body can no, selling deen is the
Selling deen,
worst.
right? Selling deen should be worse, yeah, right. As an old worker should understand. And Umar radiallahu anhu said that the, the prostitutes would be in a better position than the people who sell their deen, okay, who receive money for Dini services. And many scholars actually told, during their lectures, they mentioned this statement of Umar radiallahu anhu. So although its link is not very strong, many scholars mention, because it's an understanding that an old worker, okay, should have, a person with good insight into deen should already have. Okay. Now, when someone takes, receives money, okay, or ajr, okay, that's money or any other type of benefit, okay. in exchange of Dini services. So he's then taking ajr from people. So this is something that makes him um, ineligible for suggestions or for giving any masala, okay, regarding the particular area uh, which he is taking the the benefit about. Let me give you an example for clarification. If a scholar is hired by a bank, okay, which uses something, which uses some interest for their customers, and that's illegal in Sharia, okay. But the scholars they hire give fatwa in favor of what they are doing, okay? And they are, I mean, as they are hired, this bank authority is giving some benefit to these scholars. Because of these scholars, they are giving fatwa. Okay, this is a common practice in our in many places in the world. Now, what when you need some fatwa with regard to interest, you shouldn't go to this type of scholars because they are already taking ajr with regard to interest, right? But if you go to someone who has no business with banks or interest, okay, some scholar who has no connection with any type of, I mean, this sort of activities that relates to interest, then he he may give you the right fatwa, okay, related to interest. So this is something actually mentioned in Quran that when you need, I mean, when you wanna pay heed to somebody, okay, first check whether he is receiving any benefit in this regard with regard to what you are with regard to what you are seeking, okay. You are seeking some masala about some topic, okay. Just check with regard to this topic whether he is receiving any ajr from people or not. So you also need to check whether he is on the right track, if he has the hidayah, okay, because if he doesn't have hidayah he cannot give you the right thing, okay. So two things come here. One is that he has to have hidayah, he first has, he has to be on the right track, so then it is possible that he would know the right thing. But even if he knows the right thing, he may not give it to you, he may avoid giving you the right thing. So that depends on whether he is receiving ajr in this regard, okay, with regard to that particular topic from people, okay. And the 21st verse of Surah Yasin tells me that one should pay heed to people, and if they fulfill these two requirements, but out of these two, one is right on the right track, right, hidayah and muhtadun, the other is whether he is receiving ajr or not. Between these two, which one should check first? Can you tell me before you go to him for the suggestion? Can you tell
Before
me?
to go to
Yeah,
fatwa.
before you decide that you would pay heed to him, you should first check whether that guy, say a scholar, you wanna pay heed to him, you wanna ask him about something, some masala or something, and you wanna actually accept what he is saying. You wanna pay heed to him, but you first need to check those
Whether
two
he's
qualities,
involved.
whether he is on the right track, whether he is muhtadun, or whether he receives ajr or not. Which one should check first? Can you tell me?
I will first check whether he's receiving ajr or not.
Yeah,
Because
first you
if
check,
he's not
right?
receiving ajr, I will not classify him as
Right. First you
muhtadun.
check. That's what said in 21st verse of Surah Yasin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ittabi'u man la yaslukum ajran wa hum muhtadun. First, ittabi'u, you follow or you pay heed to them, but the first condition is la yasalukum ajra. They don't receive ajr from people. And then muhtadun. Okay? Muhtadun comes later. First, la yasalukum ajra. Okay. We should also keep in mind that sometimes these guys try to confuse in a way that, well, this they say that taking remuneration is permissible, but it's the level of taqwa that one avoids it. Okay, they try to establish it as something permissible to receive the remuneration for Dini services. Well, but I mean, Deen as defined by Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, I mean, Hadith, Sunnah, however you take it, and the lifestyle of Sahaba, then there is no example of receiving the remuneration. So how it's not Deen, okay? I mean, how you take it, how you consider it, that's different, but it's not a part of Deen, okay? You actually go beyond the limit of Deen. So, and the point is, um, what the the king, okay, the caliph of a country can do, whether he can receive money or not. Well, let me try to explain. Uh, The construction of different roads, the workers who, I mean, work for the road construction, should they be paid or not? Should they be paid?
For
Should,
the
for road
construction of the
construction?
road.
Yeah. Shouldn't they be paid?
They have to
Should
be
they,
paid
yeah,
because it is
they
not.
they should not work voluntarily, right? I mean, these services
Can
shouldn't
be
be
their job.
volunteer. Yeah, these sort of jobs should be paid services. They're supposed to be. The managers who manage this road construction, okay, and I mean coordinate the activities for all the workers. Should they also be paid? The managers? Yeah, that shouldn't be. That's not supposed to be volunteer too, right? Okay, now go to the higher level. The administration of the road system, under whom the managers work, should they also be paid?
They
The administration of the, say, nationwide road system. Okay, the okay road and highways system. There's an organization, right?
yes,
So above those managers and the hierarchy, there are other people in the administration. They should their services should also be volunteer, right?
of course.
It also should be paid. And this sort of different administration, many different administration work in the country, and there is an administration on top of all these different authorities. That administration should also be paid, right?
Of course.
And they are the total manager of this whole administration is the king. He should also be paid, right? Should that be unpaid service? Should that be volunteer? It shouldn't be. It the whole thing is worldly activities. It's all worldly activities running this whole administration of the country, and there is no harm in receiving payment for these worldly activities. It's absolutely fine. And how can it be comparable with dini service like teaching Quran, Hadith, or leading Salah, or calling Adhan? They they are all different type. They are dini services, right? They're not the worldly activities. So then how these guys are mixing up those Dini services with this, uh, leading the country, the running the administration of a country. The caliph should can can receive the payment, and his payment is supposed to be higher. I mean, the manager should be paid higher than the road workers. The administration above those managers should be even higher paid. Okay, the caliph should accordingly be very highly paid. That should be the case. So how is it mixed up with this, with the remunerations that they are taking for their daily services? Okay, that's another trick, right? Okay, finally, what Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu received was not even that payment. He could receive that. Later in Islamic history, the caliphs, they received that the payment I have just talked about. This sort of payment is definitely permissible, and the later caliphs, uh, they received them. But Abu Bakr or Umar radiallahu anhu, they even didn't receive. They just avoided. It was permissible, but they avoided this.
They requested them to take
Yeah,
their
what they
families.
received was the citizen allowance. It's allowance. Okay, this allowance they show as an evidence for remuneration for their daily services. Again, funny. It's allowance. Okay, and they, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu received that allowance in exchange of running the administration of the whole country. Okay, for which he could actually straight take a salary. That could be permissible, but he even didn't take salary. What he received was allowance. What is allowance? That is this. That was a citizen allowance. Other citizens also used to receive based on the number of family members and all that. People had citizen allowance then, because then there are a lot of, there are good money flow. So the it's also the practice in many countries, now, that there are citizen allowances. Okay, if the government has enough money, they can actually share the money with the people. So that's citizen allowance. Okay, let me try to further clarify that it's really citizen. At the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, the citizen allowance started when someone grew up to to a set to some young age. Young age means a young kid. Okay, when he left, when the baby left breastfeeding. Okay, then his
Allowance will
allowance
start.
started. Okay, but what happened? So that's what the case was in the early period of Umar radiallahu anhu. I'm talking about the period when Umar radiallahu anhu was the caliph. Well, but one day, a, Umar radiallahu anhu and another Sahaba, probably Hazrat Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, they wanted to safeguard an area. Okay, some people were staying night over there, so they decided that they would safeguard. Okay, they would guard the whole night. But the people over there didn't know that the king was around and guarding. And in the night, Umar Adil first heard that a baby was crying, okay, crying aggressively, and he went close to the house and asked the mother to try to uh, pacify the child. After a while, he cried again. The baby cried again, and then Umar radiallahu anhu, went to the house again, and from outside he talked. The third time he did that, and then from inside, the mom said, "Oh, you were disturbing." Pretty much like it's in Hayatus Saba that you have disturbed me again and again. I'm trying to relieve the boy of breastfeeding. and you have been disturbing me. Okay. The next day, Umar radiallahu anhu called upon that lady. Why were you trying to relieve him of breastfeeding? The lady was not allowing the breastfeeding. Okay, and why she was doing that? Then the lady said, well, it's you who made the rule that breastfeeding will start after the boy stop the breastfeeding. Okay, stop the milk. Then Umar radiallahu anhu actually cried a lot and changed the rule. So then the allowance started. Okay, the new rule was starting allowance even when the baby was under breastfeeding. Okay, now tell me, brother, this sort of young kid, what Dini services they do, worldly or Dini, can they do anything? So it's, I mean, this baby. So, I'm, what I mean that the allowance was even for the small child, okay, the young child. So it's not in exchange of any service. That young baby cannot provide any dini service or even worldly service. It was citizen allowance. Just because of citizen of the country, they receive the money. It's not in exchange of any service. Okay, worldly or dini service, whatever you think of, it's not in exchange of. They what they are doing is an exchange of a service. If they they are hired somewhere, right? And this is called allowance. First of all, this is called allowance. It's not called salary or wages. It's called allowance. From the term, it should be clear that it's not in exchange of anything. Just because of the status that you are citizen or whatever, uh, there are allowance in some countries. There are allowances for people who are overaged and all that. So just because of the status, when money or some benefits are given, then it is called allowance. So that's different from
allowance.
right. That's different from um, any I mean exchange of any service, right? There's no service related. It's related to status. Okay. So that's what they had, but these guys confuse people that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu received allowance, so they can also do that. Okay, for the dini services. Let's now talk a little bit about Deoband Madrasa. The Madrasa folks use a dream as an evidence of Deoband. Okay. The dream is like Qasim Nawatubi Rahmatullahi dreamed Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that he was showing the uh, markings for Deoband Madrasa, how the madrasa should be built in the land area. Okay, so that's the dream from of Qasim Nawatubi Rahmatullahi. And this dream, this story is known to all madrasa folks, even the small kid who has recently joined madrasa and he has not yet learned even Surah Fatiha. He knows this dream because there's the actually evidence for Deoband. I mean, I think there is no other evidence for Deoband madrasa except this dream. Now, first of all, Qasim Nawatubi Rahmatullahi didn't dream it. Okay, believe me. You search and you'll find out the truth. It was rather Maulana Rafiuddin who dreamt. It was dreamt by Maulana Rafiuddin, not Qasim Nawatubi Rahmatullahi. So I think all of you also heard of Qasim Nawatubi, right? That's not true. Secondly, whatever the dream is, a dream cannot be used as an evidence in Sharia. In Islamic rules, a dream cannot be used as an evidence. It's, if it provided that the dream does not comply with Quran and Hadith and the lives of Rasul, the lives of Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Unless the dream complies with that, the dream is not acceptable. The lesson of the dream is not acceptable. Okay? In the whole life of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he selected, not whole life, in the later part of his, when the efforts of Deen got mature, he used the masjid as the place for talim. All Sahaba did the same. They selected masjid as a place for talim. Now, if someone dreams, whoever he is, if someone dreams that Rasulullah is showing some other place for talim, then that's a mismatch. That does not match with the lesson of Rasulullah and Sahaba. So that's not acceptable. The dream, okay? Because you know what? Dream is something that when if you dream something, is there any way for me to dream the same, or to see what you are dreaming? Is there any way to do that? Okay. So that's why, with dream one could cheat. I could tell you in the next morning that I have dreamed last night that you all, Rasulullah is telling you all to bring a lot of food for me. Okay, I can tell you, and you couldn't see what I have dreamed, right? I can just tell you like that I have dreamed like that. So, will you accept? Do you think that is according to Islamic rule, all of you should act accordingly? No, that cannot be the case, right? In Islamic rule, a dream or the lesson of a dream is acceptable only when it matches with Quran and Sunnah. Because, otherwise people would cheat. So the dalil of Deoban Madrasa is nothing but a dream. How can a dream be an evidence? How are these guys using a dream as an evidence? And dear brothers, there is no other evidence behind Deoban. Can you give me any other evidence? That's the only evidence for Deoban.